7th grade math, test 3, study guide. Problem number 1 says if you can eat 36 hot dogs in 6 minutes, how many can you eat in 3 minutes? Well, if we find the unit rate and we say that's 36 dogs in 6 minutes, we can divide top by bottom. That's how we get unit rate, which in other words tells us how many hot dogs per minute. We can just multiply 6 hot dogs times 3 to get 18 hot dogs per minute. Problem number 2 asks us, a car traveled at a constant speed of 228 miles on 12 gallons of gas. At that speed, how many miles per gallon does the car get? In other words, they're asking us for unit rate again. So, remember, time always goes on the bottom if you can, but in this case we don't have time, but miles per gallon is what we always hear in our society, so it makes sense to say miles first. So we put miles on top, gallons on bottom. And any type of unit rate question means to divide top by bottom, and when we divide top by bottom, there's the work there. Pause the video and make sure you guys work that out yourself and get the same thing. And we get 19 miles per gallon. And it'll be per every single or every 1 gallon. And we know that because that's what happens when we divide top by bottom. We get unit rate. Number 3 says that there's a judo class where there's 15 boys and 5 girls. What is the ratio of girls to boys? Well, they mentioned 15 boys to 5 girls. We have to take that and we can write it like a fraction, do our factor trees and cross out our 1. So that's a 3-to-1 ratio of boys to girls. But be careful because the question asks us this time girls to boys. So if they say girls to boys, if it's 3 boys to every 1 girl, that's 1 girl to every 3 boys. So be careful how they ask you the question, because number 4 is the same data, but this time they ask you boys to girls. So you definitely want to be careful and pay attention to what they're asking you, because if it's girls to boys, it's 1 to 3. If it's boys to girls, it's 3 to 1. Problem number 5 says the table below has ratios that are equivalent. So that means that all of the ratios are the same. So if you took that table and you put this divided by this, that's going to be the same as this divided by this, and this divided by this. So it is a proportional relationship. So the question says how many grams of peanuts are there for each gram of raisins? So they say peanuts first. Since they say peanuts first, we put peanuts on top. So we just take any of those points that they give us. We'll take the first one, 550. And since they said peanuts first, peanuts goes on top. And of course we do our factor trees and cross out our 1s. And our answer is 1/10. So there's 1/10 gram of peanuts for every gram of raisins. Now if you use the exact same data, only this time they change the order of the question, and instead of saying peanuts first, they say raisins first. It would still be the same work, but this time raisins will go on top because they said raisins first. So that's how for number 6 we get 10 grams of raisins for every gram of peanuts. Number 7 says 3 websites have different pricing for downloading songs. Company A charges $6 for 12 songs. So let's take a look at that first. Company A, they charge $6 for 12 songs. So remember, money on top, right? I always put money on top. Time always goes on the bottom. Oh, I put sogs. I was supposed to put songs. Sorry about that. So $6 per 12 songs. We go ahead and put the 6 inside. Again, we're finding the unit rate. That's going to mean how much money per every song. So we divide top by bottom, gives us unit rate. It's 50 cents per song for Company A. Company B says $9.50 for 10 songs. Now you can divide in and out like I just did, but whenever you're dividing by 10, the shortcut is just move the decimal 1 time to the left, so that's 95 cents per song. And for Company C, they say 20 songs is $17. Now you don't put the 20 on top just because they said it first. Remember, money goes on top. So even though they said 20 songs first in the problem, you got to put the money on top and divide, and we get 85 cents per song. So Company A is only 50 cents per song, which is cheaper than the others. That's the best buy. So when they say what's the best buy, they're asking for who has the lowest unit rate. So next problem is number 7. Sorry, we just did 7. Don't want to do it again. Problem number 8 says prime factorize. There we go. Number 8. Prime factorize 189. So we check 2, 3, 5, 7. 3 goes into 189 because 1 plus 8 is 9, plus another 9 is 18, and since 3 goes into the sum of those digits, 3 will also go into 189, so we divide off to the side, and I see that 189 divided by 3 is 63. Then 3 is prime, so I drop it down. 63 is composite. I check 2, 3, 5, 7. 3 goes into it. 3 goes into it 21 times. Again, 3 is prime, 3 is prime. I'm dropping all my numbers down. I'm not leaving anybody behind. 21 is 3 times 7, so the prime factorization for 189 is 3 times 3 times 3 times 7, or 3 cubed times 7. Another way to say that is 3 to the third power times 7. That's the same number. So on problem number 9, we're going to simplify. Now they give us this big multiplication problem. So they already prime factorized for us. So we say, thank you very much for doing that for us. We'll just cross out our 1s. So see, there's a 2 on top, a 2 on top, another 2. So that crosses those 2 outs. There's a couple 3s, there's a couple 7s, there's a couple 5s. And so for problem number 9, there was 1, 2 left, right? I didn't cross this 2 out. So at first I thought I crossed them all out. I accidentally put a 1 there. Sorry about that. But when everything crosses out, there's still a 1 up top. And if everything crosses out, there'd be a 1 on the bottom. There's still a 2 left, so my answer is 1/2. We definitely don't want to try to multiply all these numbers out and all these numbers out and then reduce. We cross out our 1s before we multiply. Cross out your 1s before you multiply. So number 10, we have this fraction right here, and it's a complex fraction. But if you notice that this top line is a little bit longer than the bottom line, that's where the division sign goes. So we have 10 divided by 2/9. So we don't have 10 over 2 divided by 9. We have 10 divided by 2/9 because of the longer line. So make everything into a fraction. Multiply by reciprocal means this can become times as long as I flip this upside down. And just like simplifying fractions and multiplying fractions, we do our factor trees, cross out our 1s, and whatever's left gets multiplied. So that simplifies to 45 for number 10. For number 11, we have almost the same problem. It looks the same, but it's actually not. And what's different about this problem is that the line on the bottom is a little bit longer. So that doesn't mean 10 divided by 2/9 now. That means 10 over 2 divided by 9. Because of the line, that means the division part. So make everything into a fraction. Multiply by reciprocal. Do your factor trees and cross out your 1s, and you'll get your answer. And again, on all these videos, you guys can pause me. You can play me at 3/4 speed, so I'm speaking slowly. You can rewind it, and this is supposed to be review. So try to keep it down to 20 minutes, but pause me when you need to, okay? So number 12 says simplify. So we have this complex fraction again. The big line means division, so I have 3/7 divided by 6/14. How do we multiply divide fractions? We multiply by reciprocal. We keep the same one, change it to times, and flip the other one upside down. Do your factor trees, cross out your 1s, 2 on top, 2 on bottom, they get crossed out. Same with the 7s, same with the 3s. This time everything gets crossed out, so that answer is 1. So for 13, it says Larry can run 1/4 miles in 1/2 hours. Find his unit rate. So 1/4 miles in 1/2 hours means 1/4 miles over 1/2 hours, or 1/4 miles divided by 1/2 hours. Unit rate is always a division problem. We go top divided by bottom, first divided by second. And the way we divide by fractions is, again, multiply by reciprocal. Factor trees, cross out our 1s. And so 1/2 is the answer for number 13. But we're talking about miles per hour, so it's 1/2 miles per hour. That's his unit rate. So for 14, a snail, again, is going 2.5 miles per hour, means 2.5 miles over hours, means 2.5 miles divided by hours. So 2.5 divided by 10, make 2.5 into fraction. First we multiply 2 times 2 plus 1 to get 5 over 2. Make 10 a fraction by putting it over 1. Multiply by reciprocal. Factor trees, cross out your 1s, and we get 1/4 mile per hour. For 15, similar problem, but this time we have dollars per yards. Okay, so 15 we talk about Samantha. $14 for 2 1/3 yards. Money on top means money first, so it's 14 divided by 2/3. Make everything into a fraction. Multiply by reciprocal. Factor trees, cross out your 1s. And it's $6 per yard, not 6 yards per dollar. So the way I know that is because whatever's on top, that's what I say first. So for number 15, Samantha is $15 per yard. For number 16, we have a watt pump. And they say that It's the same rate every time. So if I put gallons over minutes, remember time always goes on the bottom. Gallons over minutes every time, I'm going to get the same thing. So I'll go ahead and pick numbers that are easy. I'll pick the 1/2 and the 14 instead of the 3/5 and the 84/5. That one's easier. Remember, time goes on the bottom. Again, multiply by reciprocal. Make everything a fraction. Cross out your ones, but it was 14 over 1 times 2 over 1. That's just 28 gallons per minute. That is the unit rate. So for 17, we have to say which of these lady paid the same price. So Deanne, she paid $28 for 1 3/4 yards. Remember, money on top, money first. This is another way of saying on top. If you write it horizontally like this, on top means first. So that means 28 divided by 1 3/4. Again, convert this to a fraction. Multiply 4 times 1 plus 3 to get 7/4. 28, just put it over 1. Now it's a fraction. Dividing fractions means multiply by reciprocal, which means we do our factor trees, cross out our ones, and we get $16 per yard for Deanne. We're going to do the same thing for Jesse. Put the money first. Make it a division problem. Convert these both into fractions. Dividing fractions means multiply by reciprocal, which means factor trees, cross out our ones. Whatever's left gets multiplied. So we see that Jesse's $16 per yard too. Now when we look at Deborah, she's $10 per 5/8 yard. Money goes first, money on top. Make it a division problem. Make them both fractions. Multiply by reciprocal. Flip the second one upside down. That means factor trees, cross out our ones again. And we get $16 per yard, so they all had the same unit rate. For problem 18, we had to select the thing that's most true. So what you have to do is you have to take all of those points that they give you in that table, and remember, money on top, we just go dollars over hours for every one. And when we go dollars over hours for the first one, we get $4 per hour. 8 divided by 2 is 4. 40 divided by 10 is 4. The 0, 0, as long as, whenever there's a 0, if they're both zeros, it's still proportional. So if you see any zeros, they both have to be zeros, or else you can stop and say not proportional. So now let's check the next one. $2 for 8 hours. So that one's kind of tricky. We still get a 4, but it's actually 1 over 4. If you put dollars on top, it's not the same, so the answer has to be C for this one. And so for 19, it says select the statement that's true. Again, we're doing the same thing. We're going to test all of those for the first one. Gallons per minutes.